welcome to a special edition of West Coast Live. I'm your host, Peter McBusiness, aka America's Wasp, joined as always by the one and only Stat Davis Patriot. We are California lefties talking about national politics, watching a lot of media so that you don't have. Um, what is on your mind these days with all these random confirmation hearings? Who hasn't even taken office?
You're gonna have to do something about your mic. It's super garbled.
Garbled.
Um,
Oh no.
but whatever you
But
just
that's
did.
whatever you just did.
Oh, even now I can
Oh,
hear
even now I
myself.
can hear myself. Yeah, I know.
I can't hear you. Sorry, folks. Technical issues. Trying to
How's
remedy.
that?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think for some reason I'm losing connectivity. Anyway, Step, why don't you open us up with your thoughts on this week and how Trump hasn't even taken office yet, and it's just chaos is about to ensue.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, there's so much going on right now. I have a whole lot of different topics in my in my header. It's hard to know where to start, honestly. Um, well, we did get the confirmation of uh, Johnson for House Speaker. It almost went into a second round, but apparently, after three votes didn't go his way, some strings were pulled, and it ended up he ended up taking the speakership. But it doesn't really look like Trump's first 100 days is going to be that um, fruitful, which I guess is a good sign, depending on how you look at it, I suppose. And it's mostly because all the conservatives are saying like Trump was elected with a mandate. They try to claim that it was overwhelming and everything, and it really wasn't. Like they ended up losing seats in the House, and the margin is razor thin, and they're going to need to get all the help that they can get in order to get anything through any of his agenda. But it's just
You don't think he's going to be able to bully them by calling them rhinos?
I I mean he might have more luck in the House than in the Senate, but in the Senate is not really even going to matter that much because they have a 53-47 majority.
Right.
But I mean, his sway remains to be seen. It's like we talked about in the last episode. Who is he going to try to appeal to the most? What matters most to him? What when it comes to um, who to appeal? Um, but yeah,
Well, I think it's always good to manage expectations, but also appreciate how little you can predict when it comes to Trump. And the only thing that might be the saving grace of Project 2025, maybe I'd say we'll see a third of what was in Project 2025 in these next four
yeah,
years.
oh yeah,
Partly because Trump is so freaking lazy and all he cares about is being in the media. So that might be a little bit of a
yeah,
saving grace. But I do think that my eyeball, after these confirmation hearings soak up the media cycle, my once he's in office, my concern is Texas and the mass deportations. I think they're
right,
going to be in Texas right off the bat. That's going to be kind of the flagship mass deportation location because
right.
that state hates immigrants and they're going to be extremely cooperative with whatever the federal government wants.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma is as well. They've been making a lot of headlines recently, of course, with the Bibles in every public school debacle that's going on there. Their fucking stupid insistence on banning renewables
Yeah.
It's just completely senseless, completely brain dead. They're another one of those far right Republican ran states that's going to kowtow to the more extreme elements of the party and, of
Right.
course, everything that they stand for and believe in. Florida now as well. It's a good point, Megan. There,
What you saying?
Florida's going to be one of them as well,
Hmm.
without a doubt.
Yeah, I just see it so easy to get the immigrants on a bus and bust them over the border in
Hmm.
Texas more so than in other states. So that'll be why I'm. And it'll be interesting to see the kind of stranglehold that Trump puts on the media coverage for the mass deportations.
Yeah,
But that seems to be the big priority. That, and it sounds like he is going to do some tariffs. And I'm sure he's going to somehow make a tax cut for one percenters and corporations happen because that's the modus operandi of the Republican Party. That is
yeah,
why they exist.
yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it's gonna be disgusting. It's just it's the status quo, but this time there's like basically no accountability. That's why you have more and more people, more and more liberals coming out and saying, "Wow, maybe Bernie Sanders was right all along." It's just like
Yeah, but
it's too
everyone
little,
keeps
too
talking
late.
about that, but real quick on that because we did coverage of James Carville
Hmm.
at first saying it was wokeness and DEI and the far left, and then for a hot second, the moment that everyone talks about, he says maybe Bernie was right. Since then, I have seen him double down on the far left being the problem. Like, I think we got a ways to go
No, of course.
before the lesson of this election is learned.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath. I don't. It the Democratic establishment is not interested in kowtowing to the left or progressives
Or just
on anything.
respecting the power of the progressive faction of the
There's
party.
there's no respect.
There's no respect.
There's none to be found.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the people that is gonna be sacrificed at the altar of history if progressivism does have its day is Nancy Pelosi. I
Hmm.
mean, she is the mother of neoliberalism in the swamp
Yeah.
for the last 18 years, and it's an abomination. Now, I know I'm going to do more research on her, but I know we want to touch on Obama's effect and how he kind of opened the door for Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to touch on that now. I think it would be cool to kind of. I'd be down to listen to your insights. I have my own thoughts, but I think you might be a little bit stronger on this particular subject.
Yeah, one of the shorts I cut from our last stream was my emphasis on that. It really does need to be emphasized just how badly Obama has screwed future generations. He didn't do what needed to be done. It's like we talked about with generational change as well. The fact that he didn't go after the bankers and
Right.
he didn't reinstate Glass-Steagall. He was his foreign policy was awful. Of course, the whole Libya
The drone
debacle.
strikes.
Yeah, and the
Yep.
increasing of drone strikes. And yeah, it was it was just the status quo. He didn't actually. There wasn't actual change like he promised or like he campaigned on. Even with a supermajority, like his biggest accomplishment was watered down,
Obamacare.
yeah, healthcare, the American Healthcare Act, and even that, it gave healthcare to a lot more people, but it's really fucking shitty healthcare to begin with.
Well, it's just a catering to the private sector. It's
That's
playing
it.
off of the status quo, and he says that the country wasn't ready for universal health care. And that's
It's
just a
been
loser's
ready.
attitude.
No,
That's
of
consistent with the
course.
culture of loserdom in the Democratic Party, which is that, oh, we have to read the tea leaves and guess what America wants. Well, maybe you know better. Maybe you know that not only is America ready and hungry for universal health care, but they need it to survive?
Yeah.
Maybe that's how you sell it to them. I mean, there is amount of salesmanship that is involved in being the president of the United States that I think we as lefties need to acknowledge and embrace in our candidacy. It's kind of what I talk about. It's a certain kind of salesmanship, though. It's a very high level political salesmanship. Clinton was amazing at it. But it's the kind of thing where I say so and so politician isn't management material, right? They're not White House worthy. They're not going to be an executive branch like Amy Klobuchar, for example.
Yeah.
And now people are talking about Tim Walz as a potential nominee for 2028, and I'm like, no, he's too nice, guys. We're not. We need someone with a chip on their shoulder and something to prove, and
Yeah.
someone who's going to like rally the entire party behind them
Well,
and galvanize the youth vote, because the youth vote's the only thing that's going to save us.
I mean, he could be. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if Tim Walz ended up being the nominee in 2028, he would need to lead a Bernie Sanders style campaign, because I do think that he was effectively neutered under the
It
Harris
was.
campaign. So I don't
Yeah.
think we really saw his full potential, because he did get Spitfire. He did get like antsy and a little fiery, especially early on. But that just disappeared, and
Yeah.
I think it was revealed by the strategists that they just wanted to hide him away, basically, and we saw that happen. So it would need to be like a transformative grassroots campaign if he was to run in the style of Bernie Sanders, because I do think that he can galvanize a young base. But we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think we need to go younger, better looking, and
Yeah.
I start with the casting, because TV is what matters in America more so
Right.
than it does in a lot of other democracies. But Tim Walz, people can have fun with that. I don't think it's realistic. I think the best we can hope for is someone is able to influence either Gavin Newsom or Wes Moore, whoever becomes the nominee in 2028, and is able to
Right.
kind of pull them left, because they're the ones who are next in line. They're Gretchen Whitmer to a certain extent, but I don't think she'll win the nomination. Gavin Newsom is in the news quite a bit because of these fires, and is getting a very bipolar set of criticisms across the media landscape. Everyone on one side is saying it's all his fault. A lot of people on the other side are saying no, he's doing the best he can. I don't know where I fall. I mean, Karen Bass obviously really screwed up and has embarrassed herself and embarrassed progressives, and
Yeah.
it's a shame, because she could have been a real cornerstone for the next generation of politicians for the progressive left, but she's cooked now.
Yeah.
And God,
I think she was just caught off guard by the whole thing, and it's not hard to understand why. I mean, these are literally like the worst fires in L.A. history. I think
right?
like $150 billion in damages so far.
I heard
It's
180, but yeah,
yeah. I mean, it just keeps on getting
it's going to
worse.
take an entire. I was talking to somebody about it today. It's going to take a year just to clean it up.
No, yeah, it's absolutely fucking insane, and they're not going to be able to contain these fires for weeks. I
Right.
was I was at the gym this morning, and I was watching coverage on the TVs that they have there, and it's just fucking nuts. I mean, but like of course, like because conservatives control the narrative, because they're fucking loudmouths on Twitter, and are constantly spreading bullshit through, on Newsmax or Fox News or whatever the fuck. They're trying to divert blame any which way they can, but conservative conservatives can try to divert blame for these fires in elsewhere. Like they can blame Newsom, they can blame the mayor, they can blame whatever, But it's a distraction from the fact that FEMA wasn't funded like it was supposed to. Like, even Trump tried to blame Biden for the lack of FEMA funding when Biden was begging the Republican House to provide
Right.
more funding for FEMA when
I remember that. Yep.
the hurricanes fucking came up and destroyed shit. And so it's like, well, the conservative media is like, we can't focus on that. We can't have any attention towards this clear failing, so we just gotta blame whatever DEI or woke or women firefighters or whatever the fuck. It's pathetic, but it's like it's the only playbook they have.
Yeah, distraction.
It's getting so old at this point. It's
Well, it's old to us. It's old to us because we've done our homework and we've been around and we've been paying attention for the last 10 years.
no, yeah.
And but or I mean, if you do your homework, then you realize this is just their playbook since the civil rights
No,
movement.
yeah, yeah, without a doubt, and it's like, from what I understand, the LA Fire Department has like a $800 million budget, and a lot of the talking points that because there's a lot of bullshit being flung around. A 17 million cut in the budget is just a 2% cut. It doesn't. It's not as materially um, negatively effective as people are trying to make it out to be. Is what I'm trying to say. Um, Mismanagement is there, but it really is, like I was saying, the distraction, like trying to distract from the fact that like the house didn't come in and fund FEMA like they're supposed to. Another thing that's just not being brought up like it should is fucking climate change.
Right.
Period. You have conservatives saying, "Oh, the Santa Ana winds; these happen all the time." Like, just negating to mention that the winds this year are the worst they've
Ever
probably
been.
ever been, and the fact that like the area has not seen rain in 9 months. You have so much unkempt dry brush that's it just endless fuel. That it'll make these fires rage for weeks. There's still very little containment of these fires. It's climate change.
Right. Yeah,
It's
it
so
seems like
frustrating.
Newsom will probably use that as his bone to throw to the progressive left when he makes his run is climate change.
Right.
That's the one that'll be the resurrected issue of these tragedies. But because it's gonna be this problem that there's gonna be other stuff that happens in between now and the next presidential election or even the midterms.
No, yeah.
Um,
I mean, at this point, like, w- I feel like a lot of people, myself included, are not ready to just put their eggs in the basket of any given politician or whatever. People are broke. They're not going to throw money at various campaigns that they don't even believe in. Because ultimately, what it comes down to is if you're going to be running for the Democratic ticket or if for any political office, if your platform does not address covering everybody when it comes to healthcare, like
mhm.
Medicare for all or something better, or addressing climate change and the immediate threat that it is and that it poses for us, like it's a non-starter. You should not be taken seriously. You should not be respected. Like at all. Period. Bar none. Like no room for negotiation. Like it's too fucking late for this shit. We've dealt with this for like over a decade now. We uh, offered Bernie as a compromise, and too little, too late. Fucking
Yeah.
yeah. It's so
Well,
frustrating.
so I'm building up kind of a manifesto of sorts about like the 10 issues that are just non-negotiable for moving forward. And um, one is with um, climate change that, it's caused by man-made activity. And if you don't
Yeah.
agree, then we're just not going to do political business with you. I
Yeah.
mean, the politics of division are really what are required now, and it's actually what America wants. the mainstream media would have you believe that, oh, it's all about bringing people together. How many times do you hear that during a campaign? Bringing people together. Well, I don't want the idiots on my team. I don't want the idiots in the decision-making room, the people who are bought and paid for by special interests.
Yeah,
And I think if you explained it more like that, and in an aggressive message, then you would have much more success winning national elections. But
yeah.
you
You
know
can't.
what the hell do we know, right? We're just the
Uh,
proletariat trying to make it, make messaging work for the DNC, but they don't want to listen.
you can't be taken seriously as a political force if you're going to include people that shouldn't be taken seriously.
Right.
It's that simple.
People always wonder why the progressives are the most pissed off political faction in America because, progressives do have that reputation as just like being in your face because they know what's wrong and
Hmm.
they know these problems are not 5, 10, 15 years old. These problems are 45 years old. These problems in some cases are 60 years old.
Yeah.
So we've got to completely transform our government into something that actually services the people and prioritizes the people. But
Of course.
that's just going to take a revolution at this point. I don't see us getting the quantity or quality of change necessary without some sort of political revolution. I don't see Gavin Newsom or Wes Moore as maybe Wes Moore, but probably not because he's pretty establishment.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, Megan was saying how the brush has grown because of rain and it's dry because of environmentalists not allowing controlled burns. I did hear about that. It's there. Forest management is really crucial when it comes to like
yeah,
preventing forest fires, obviously.
right,
And so like because I've seen video clips of like forests that are clearly unkept. Uh, Down trees, limbs, branches, just cluttered. That's just like fuel for a fire waiting to
right,
happen.
right,
More managed forests look a lot more even, a lot more space in between trees. The forest floors are uh, clear. It's clean. There's not there's not a lot of fuel for fires
right.
essentially. Um, Also says ridiculous to imply conservatives not mentioning climate change. They are, but they're just, they're just saying it's bullshit and like I saw a
It's
headline saying
natural. They say it's natural. The way that the temperature changes in the U.S. or in the world over the last 100 years is natural when science says otherwise. I
right.
mean, it's ridiculous.
It,
Conservatives might say that there's climate change, but they won't admit that it's happening too fast, and they won't admit that it's caused by man-made activity. They
yeah.
they won't admit that.
No, exactly. It's like uh, I was watching Secular Talk earlier today, and he's made this point over and over. It's like, well, there's the conspiracy right there. The fact that all these fossil fuel industry like, companies and the entire fossil fuel industry has known about the effects of CO2 and burning fossil fuels on the climate, on the atmosphere, and the warming of the planet, and doing nothing about it. They lobby the government to maintain their subsidies. They pay off politicians to downplay climate change. They they're bribing people in Washington who are supposed to represent us to deregulate the industry so they can keep on getting away with whatever, maximizing their profits, uh, being able to pollute the
Yeah,
environment as much as they want. More offshore drilling, which Biden actually signed an executive order addressing, but we'll get to that a little bit later. It's I mean it's the conspiracy is right there for people to see.
right.
It yeah.
Yeah, the American voter has a problem with dramatic stories. Dramatic stories are more appealing. They're more interesting, they're more emotionally sensational. So they would rather have it be that science is the source of the conspiracy. Probably because a lot of Americans sucked at science and they didn't take science seriously and they didn't understand that, like, the real intellectual geniuses of our society are the scientists doing research
Hmm.
and adding knowledge to an established knowledge base, not people that are like business people are celebrated as these intellectual giants when all they did was they're gamers. They played the game really
Yeah.
well and they figured out the
Yeah.
rules, and most people don't even know the goddamn rules of how to play the game that they played.
No kidding.
And so I don't, they're tremendous competitors, and they've no doubt that they are smart and that they worked hard, but they are not the intellectual titans of our society.
No
Not
kidding.
even
Like,
close.
how stupid do you have to be to just to ban renewables? It's like conservatives go on and on about being like an energy leader, like especially in terms of output and exports and whatnot. Why focus solely on fossil fuels? Why focus solely on oil? We could be a world leader in renewable energy when it comes to solar, when it comes to wind. In this regard, China's like just wiping the floor with us. Yet our government is so captured by these fossil fuel giants that this kind of change is just not in the cards for a lot of our fucking politicians.
That's right. That's right. Well, shame on the Democrats for not pitching it back and not taking,
Oh, of
Al Gore a
course.
little bit more seriously, and shame on Al Gore for not exerting his pressure a little bit more to create new industries, because ultimately the messiah of American commerce is the entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And we could have created a lot of entrepreneurial economic growth by way of the renewable energies that you're talking about.
Hmm.
And the good news is that there's still a lot of unexplored wind resources on the ground. I do not agree with these offshore wind energy facilities being built until our on land energy resources are more developed.
Sure.
And I also don't agree with private companies owning and operating these facilities that
Right.
are on public lands. I don't see a reason why the for profit motive would motivate or encourage or produce a better energy supply.
I'm.
Why does the for profit motive need to be involved in this? Why can't the government just buy the turbines, install them themselves, operate maybe we hire consultants from other countries who have done this kind of construction before to make sure we don't fuck it up. But
Sure.
I mean, in terms of owning and operating the facility, that should belong to either the state or federal government.
Yeah, like ultimately, like it shouldn't even really be about competition abroad either. It's simply cutting the costs of energy expenses, like introducing more alternatives to the market. It's going to save people a whole hell of a lot of money. I think it's from what I understand. I think in places like China, there's such an abundance of renewable energy when it comes to like solar panels, for example, a, a lot of business when it comes to solar out there, to the point where the companies that do solar aren't even really able to turn as big of a profit because it's so cheap and it's so abundant there. There's like there's an abundance of supply, so like it's outpacing demand, and so of course like the price of energy, the expenses for energy are going to be a lot lower, and that could be the
Right.
case. That could be the case here, but of course, fucking, we have an electorate that votes against its own interests,
Yeah.
and it's just going to get more expensive too because fuck us, I guess.
Well, and that's why I'd like to separate the MAGA contingent along symbols of ignorance, like I say in my essays, the Confederate flag waving, Bible beating gun nuts is how I would define the core of MAGA now. Previously, I would have probably just said that that is mostly MAGA, but or like all of MAGA, but now it's because of this Elon influence making it like cool, and the Gen Z and a lot of the Latino men, I should say, that are trending conservative.
Hmm.
It's just the whole reluctance on the left to say the word stupid is just it, but it's true. I mean, you can only excuse ignorance so much. I mean, the fact that you had so many Latinos interviewed after the election of like about being asked about the mass deportations and them saying, "Oh, well, he's only going to deport the bad people." And it's like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Do you not understand? I mean, the answer is no. They don't understand. They don't understand.
And another thing is too, is just like the Democrats taking that base of Hispanics and Latinos for granted. Like they're always going to be voting blue, so you don't have to worry about your messaging or just just worry about vibes and aesthetics, and they'll
Well,
fall in line.
we
And
talked
that's not
about
the
it on
case.
this show how
Hmm.
the strategy from the Harris campaign was that they were working backwards from likelihood of participation,
Hmm.
which meant for going for white working class in states like Pennsylvania and Georgia, North Carolina to a certain extent, obviously Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And instead of inspiring participation and recognizing that
Yeah.
actually what you had in Kamala Harris, who is camera friendly, who does actually have some natural charisma, she just wasn't molded properly, and shame on the Democratic Party for not working on her while
Right.
Biden was president.
Yeah.
This ultimately comes, I mean, the current condition of the American politics is really defined right now by Biden not announcing earlier that he would not run, and have then we could have had a real primary. And then you and I both know how exciting primaries can be. It's like building a house. Like Trump started off at like 13% or something in the Republican primary in 2016, and then
Hmm.
slowly but surely, after every debate, he got bigger and bigger. And then whenever
Yeah.
when someone would drop out, then those voters would usually end up in Trump's camp.
Yeah. I mean, like what Kamala Harris really shined when it came to like Senate hearings and um, the the committees that she was on. And I don't know if you've been watching these Pete Hegseth hearings.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of them. Yeah.
Tammy Duckworth should have been Joe Biden's vice president.
Yeah,
Like,
I would have been cool with that.
I, I think she would have. For one, if everything played out the same as it did for in 2024, and Joe Biden had to drop out, and Tammy Duckworth was to take the take the reins, I think she would have won.
Hmm.
I think she would have been like it, she would have like played everything like a lot more smarter. Like she comes off as someone like a lot more focused, a lot more in tune. Like she was nailing it in these
Well, she's got better
hearings.
command of the data, that's for sure, and
Yeah,
she's not a she's not a
clearly smarter than
prosecutor.
Kamala. Yeah,
Like she doesn't have the right, she doesn't have the disposition that Kamala did as a prosecutor, which was the wrong goddamn disposition. We need someone who understands
yeah.
labor.
No, yeah. Right, right, of course. I mean, yeah, it just does ultimately all come back to Biden, but I mean, hindsight's 2020, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. God, these Hegseth hearings, dude.
Yeah, he's been getting called out on a lot of personal stuff and just being super evasive.
No, yeah.
That's the thing. These confirmation hearings, like I watch a little bit of them, but I'm like, oh yeah, they're just riding out the clock. I
Hmm.
mean, the best thing to do in
Really
these
though.
confirmations, if you're a senator, don't even ask a question. Just go on a monologue for the entire time about why this person sucks.
Yeah.
You'll
No.
go viral. You
Yeah.
will. They did that for the Amy
Yeah.
Coney Barrett. That one guy, I can't remember his name, did it
Uh,
for the Amy Coney Barrett hearings and just talked about the Federalist Society
Kavanaugh.
the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. No. This is. It's the same shit. Like it really is just an opportunity for senators to do their dance, get their one-liners in, get their uh, sound bites. You know, he's going to be confirmed. Pete Hegseth, fucking vile person. It's, but the Republicans in the Senate don't give a shit. They, they've basically already all signaled like, yeah, this guy's going to be confirmed. It's all this is for fucking nothing. He's going to be confirmed on party lines. A guy who
Yes.
is not fucking fit for the
This is like,
position.
okay, so when it comes to the NFL season, like some NFL fans love the draft. And they think the draft is really going to tell you who's going to be good next year. And it's like, no. You need 2 to 3 to 5, preferably as many as 6 weeks of regular season football to figure out who's really good.
Hmm.
And this right now is like preseason. I mean, it's like the draft. It's like they are Trump is drafting his team,
Hmm.
and it's not really going to matter until 6 months from now is when we'll start to really see the effects
Right.
of these choices. But that's one thing the voters don't really think about is you're not just electing a president, you're electing his network, and
The
you're
people he.
putting into power everybody who knows this guy,
Yeah.
and the people who are doing the actual governing are these secretaries, are these this members of this cabinet. They're the ones who are overseeing the actual power, the administrative power of the White House.
Yeah, and it's there are such issues with his picks for his cabinet and the head of various departments in Washington for the government that it's going to cut into his first 100 days. So he's not going to get everything that he wants done.
No, I think it'll be tariffs, mass deportations, and some kind of tax cut for the wealthy and corporations. Those will be the three things that'll be the focus of the first 6 months of his presidency.
Right. If he's not able to like get through all his nominations, not even that's going to be very successful. Everything might get just pushed off
Pushed,
until
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It-
Hopefully.
no,
Hopefully everything gets clogged up and we just get the politics of resistance.
yeah, it's like I've said before. Like hopefully it's such a shit show and there's such incompetence that it won't even really matter that he has both the House and Senate. He won't be able to get as much done. I mean, the infighting alone and just the clashing of personalities, the power imbalances, the opportunists, the muddied interests, the conflicting interests. It's all it's going to be a very interesting administration, and it's
It's going to be the seventh circle of hell. I
of
mean, is what it's
course,
going to be.
of
It's going to be
course,
bad. And I hope that Gen Z is paying attention
yeah,
because it's only through the unity of millennials and Gen Z starting to take their citizenship more seriously since the greatest generation that we'll actually be able to get some modern day thinkers. I'm sorry, but if you didn't grow up with the internet, then you do not understand it.
Yeah.
If you didn't grow up, but with that said, if you didn't grow up with at least a few years of understanding what life was like before 9/11, then you don't understand how the legacy of the Cold War carried over into this century and fucked everything up in terms of making domestic policy a priority because we were so busy fighting foreign wars.
Right. Yeah.
And that was escalated under talk about Obama too. Now the Vanguard guys claim that Obama took us from 2 wars to 7, but I don't know if that's entirely accurate. I think one of those wars was our military campaign to take out bin Laden in Pakistan. So I don't really think that actually counts as a war, as it's just a military. What do you call it? Conversion or whatever. It's
Right
I
there.
can't remember.
It's. I mean.
Incursion. Incursion.
Right. Right. It is. There's definitely wiggle room there to interpret whether or not like something is a war or not. Like, regardless, he did drone strike at least 7
Mhm.
countries during his tenure as president, and whether or not like that meant like we were directly involved in a war in terms of infantry units on the
Do you think
ground.
that you don't think any of the drone strikes were justifiable?
I mean, generally no, but like, of course, everything is on a case by case basis. But there was just such a huge emphasis on drone strikes under Obama that it's hard to justify the extent of the use of them at the very least. Of course, like the operation of going and getting in Bin Laden, like I totally understand that. Um,
Yeah, but that
but
wasn't him. Like Obama doesn't deserve any credit for that. That was an ongoing
no, of
investigation
course,
run by the Pentagon
yeah,
through his from extending from W's administration into his. That's not
yeah.
like a lot of the federal government runs like a machine.
hmm It's like
And I think that's what like the ethos problem for Democratic Party nominees is it doesn't feel to me and to a lot of people, I think the average voter, like they can handle the power. It doesn't feel like they know what to do with the power once they have it. And
right,
that was Obama's problem was experience. He was only in office for 25 months before he announced his candidacy for president.
right,
So you telling me that guy had been conditioned to exercise power once he had it? And of course the answer is no, because he ran his presidency by the polls. Deporter in chief. He didn't take any proactive initiative on serious immigration policy,
right.
except for his own version of mass deportations.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, of course, foreign policy seems to be just like a continuation with each president. So whatever happens under whatever president is currently in office, they'll get credit for it, even though like it might have been like an operation or something that was put together by the previous administration. Another good example of this is Trump getting credit for the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas right now. But who's president right now? It's Joe Biden. So,
Right.
so how involved was Trump with this ceasefire to begin with? How involved was Joe Biden with like,
Probably not much.
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe a lot. Maybe a lot. It's impossible to know because the guy's so goddamn old. It's
mhm,
like if you want to credit anybody in the administration playing off of what I just said about how important the secretaries are, you got
mhm.
to go with Blinken as the guy who made the ceasefire happen. Maybe. I
Uh,
mean, maybe. I don't really find much respectable about him.
no.
That's going to take some balls for someone. I mean, maybe we should like start to formulate kind of the criteria because if there's one thing you and I have done a good job of since the election is coming back to earth with respect to expectations about how long this quote revolution is going to take, and maybe it's a
Mm-hmm.
slow burn like Cold War style revolution. I don't know,
Right.
but it's going to be 2 to 8 years before we progressivism really. It's going to be 4 to 12 years before progressivism has a real chance, and it's probably going to be probably closer to 12 years. And one of the criteria, though, that is going to have to be part of the next great progressive leader is to be anti-APAC. And not to be
Yeah.
anti-Israel, but to say anti-APAC.
Yeah.
I'm anti-APAC, I'm anti-NRA,
Yeah.
I'm anti, a whole laundry list
Mm-hmm.
of lobbyists
Right.
and go right at those special interests. It's not enough to just say, I'm using small dollar donations and not taking corporate PAC money. No, attack the PACs.
Yeah.
Attack the PACs
Yeah. Yeah.
and say people who take money from the NRA. Here are people who take money from the NRA, and start dropping names of conservative politicians, like villainize them.
Yeah.
They are complicit. I don't care if they're cogs in a system. Their legacy is tied to Trump from now on,
Yeah.
forever,
Right.
and we got to make them pay. And it's not just for like our own satisfaction. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just to inflict revenge. It's to set a foundation for the next generation that conservatism is not good.
Yeah.
It is not useful if your goal is to create a fair, functional, and relatively equal society. And I say
Right.
relatively because, yeah, some people do deserve to have more. They're just smarter and work harder than others.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. The superstars should be paid like superstars up until a goddamn point.
Mm-hmm.
Up until a point. Now, another thing about money, because Kalinske does a lot of talking about money, and he doesn't really touch on this, though, which is that in our system of capitalism, it's a lot easier to make money once you have money. This is a play
Yes.
off of a cliche that you might have heard from the business world, which is your first million is your toughest million, or your toughest million is your first million.
Right.
So that's the difference between wealth and income inequality. It's really about the wealth.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really so much about income. The income is usually your salary from your job, and yeah, that matters to a majority of people. But in terms of understanding the upper echelon, the nobility of America, as it were, it's understanding their ownership stakes in various companies and how they control the economy with it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, honestly. And so, when it comes to these next several years and the rise of progressivism, you spoke earlier about Gen Z and
Yeah,
how much more aware they are, how much more in tune, and a big reason that is TikTok. It's
yeah,
I believe it's like the single biggest like communications medium like amongst Americans. I think 160 Americans use it or something some crazy number, and now it's going bye. It's set on being
yeah,
banned this weekend. That's
yeah.
like the biggest medium for Gen Z. Period. And if anything
Well,
is
I think
going
it'll
to
broaden their horizons. I
galvanize
think it'll.
them, it's going to be the banning of it. It's going to galvanize a whole lot of young people, and it already is. Like we're already seeing it.
Well, Trump might overturn it, I guess, or the Supreme Court might overturn
Maybe
it, something like that.
right.
Um,
We're still waiting on the final
Judicial review.
say. Yeah, the final say on the whole thing. But if it does go, I mean, it's like because the whole argument is the U.S. officials claim that it's a national security risk because TikTok is used by the Chinese to collect data on Americans, and it
Right.
could be used to influence Americans in a negative way. It could make people against the American government or whatever. It's just ridiculous argument because it's like you don't think that banning like the biggest app in the world that millions upon millions of people use in America every day isn't just going to further galvanize especially young people against the US government. No, it's. I mean, they even
It's
admitted
interesting you
it.
say
It's
that. I
because
think interesting. Yeah, because it is that you think it's that important to them.
no. I mean, it really is because there's not the kind of moderation on it that you get from like a Meta or even Twitter. Like the biggest difference between say TikTok and companies owned by Zuckerberg is because the U.S. government has more of a say in oversight of these companies. And if ByteDance, who owns TikTok, isn't like American owned, there's not as much of an easy back door for the U.S. government to get in and collect data because, like, ultimately, these American companies like Meta and whatever, Google, Microsoft, they collect our data already, but because
Yeah, I know,
China's doing it, it's something about
dude.
like like it makes very little difference. So the reason why TikTok is being banned is because of what this is exposing about the American empire and what Israel is doing in Gaza. This has been admitted by I forget who it was. I think it might have been Blinken. I think it might have been Anthony Blinken that actually said
TikTok
the
is
quiet part out loud.
specifically exposing U.S. backed action in Israel, Gaza.
Gaza, yeah,
TikTok.
like
Yeah.
Palestinians are literally directly like uploading videos from Gaza onto TikTok. It
It's too
yeah,
bad those don't get more play in mainstream media.
no, of course. Yeah, it's yeah, it's the big it's a gigantic app. Like its influence, its size, it really can't be overstated. I mean, people really care so little about the narrative that China owns it and is collecting your data that a lot of TikTok users are actually downloading the real actual Chinese version of TikTok that they have over there in that country called Red Notes, I believe. It's just it's the most hilarious thing. So now you're seeing like a clashing of cultures, like the people from China who actually use the app, and all these Americans and Canadians and people in the UK. It's a really amusing thing to witness. Honestly.
I know a handful of TikTok stars. Like I don't know them, but
Hmm.
I met them at one point
Uh
through
huh.
Hollywood and stuff. And I'm curious to see what they're gonna do. I guess there's
Yeah.
another one called Red Band or something. There's a new app coming out called Red Band that might try to supplant TikTok, but something else will come up. It's a real opportunity for someone who has the money and knows the space to supplant TikTok. I mean,
Yeah.
people sign up. People sign up if it's marketed and the app works.
I'm not sure if you think of.
Blue Sky. I mean, look at Blue Sky
Mhm.
for after the election. Blue Sky is absolutely blown up,
No. Yeah.
and it's great. It's great to see because I have no interest in being on X. I have never been a Twitter
Yeah.
guy. Really, I tried to get into it a few times. I just can't do it. It's just not in me. It's just not in me. And like reading all the feeds, like there's so much crap. And it used to be, I'm one of the better parts of Elon buying Twitter and killing Twitter is that I don't have to hear like Gavin and Zach talk about the latest Twitter battle or whatever.
No, right. Yeah, I mean, I really can't stand Twitter, especially nowadays. Like, it really is a place where basically everybody still is when it comes to big names, political figures, and whatnot. And so, when you want to like try to reach like bigger.
It's just press releases, though. It's just short press
No, no,
releases. That's
no.
all it is.
Yeah, but like in my experience, like even my tweets get zero traction, and I don't want to have to pay for a fucking blue check to increase my reach, and not to mention, it the whole platform is being used for an AI learning database anyway. So
Right.
it's collecting it's learning from its users to begin with. It, it's not a good app anymore. I shouldn't have to pay extra money for reach. You know, like I don't get viral tweets anymore. Like it's ridiculous. Blue Sky is better in every way, in my opinion. It's just not nearly as
And it's only
popular
scratching
as
the
it used
surface.
to be.
Blue
Yeah,
Sky will evolve and will grow into
no, of
something that's
course.
even better than what it is now.
Right.
I have faith. I have faith. I forget her name, but the woman who founded it was on TV at one point. I watched an interview with her. I was very impressed. I thought she was like, this woman's she's gonna get the details right and get the growth right because that's how you make it with an app like that. Is you continue to grow and evolve.
Right.
Um, Speaking of evolution, we are going through one of those mutations that doesn't work, that the natural environment does not tolerate, and we're gonna see how it goes, man. It's like I said with the sports analogy, it feels just like preseason of the draft right now, and it doesn't really feel like the meat is coming, the flames are coming for another 3 months, really. I mean, really, after it gets inaugurated, once the DNC or the RNC establishment fires up its engines and starts telling Trump what to do, it's going to be interesting to see what he says yes to and what he says no to. He is unpredictable, man, and we just put the entire Western society of the globe on anxiety for the next 4 years. The
Right.
rest of Western civilization is going to be all kinds of, and third world America to be, quite honest, because we're not coming to the rescue anymore. We're not going to intervene in certain things that we should, and we're going to intervene in certain things that we shouldn't. And
Yeah.
it's going to be a complete disaster on all fronts. And I have no doubt that just all my years being a little bit older than you, and I think you probably agree, 2028 is going to be just like 2020 and just like 2008, where the incumbent was so bad
Hmm.
that no matter who the Democratic nominee is, will win the presidency. If it's Gavin, if it's Wes, if it's Gretchen, no matter who it is, they will win because the country will be so disgusted with the Republican Party by that point. And that will mean that your and my politics will be maybe pandered to. Maybe we'll give in some crumbs over those next 4 to 8 years. But I think we're going to have to go back again, man. I don't see that. And the problem is names. I don't see any heir to the Bernie legacy,
Right.
right? Like AOC is not. AOC is a creature of the hill. She
Mhm.
does not need to be running for president.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really holding my breath. Like, if it's anybody that can manage to lose an election to a disastrous party like the Republicans, it's the Democrats.
Right.
It's the neoliberal establishment types. It's the ones who fucking sell out to big money corporate interests, who are bought out by the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, the fucking APAC, uh, big oil, you name it. They're I mean, if they think that like all they have to do is just not be Republicans because the Republicans really are that bad and are going to be a disaster for the next 4 years, why should they pander to progressives? If I'm them,
Right.
it's like, well, why wouldn't people vote for us? Like the other guys are just so much worse than us. Like
Right.
we don't even have to do anything. It's just like, of course, not learning the fucking lessons from Hillary Clinton, from fucking
Right.
Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that's it for me. Unless you got anything else you want to cover, maybe you got some chats you want to talk about or anything.
Well, um, we have been getting some interesting executive orders from Biden recently
Yeah,
that I
that's
thought
true. Good call.
were actually
Yeah.
worth mentioning.
Well,
I
he's got
get
to make up for pardoning his son, right? He's got to score some points after. He's got to get
right.
some 3 pointers after bricking on
Hmm.
pardoning his son. You knew he was going to. What father wouldn't?
Yeah.
His career in politics is over.
Hmm.
It was a shit show of a end of the presidency, and it sucked. So
Right.
whatever. You take care of your family on the way out.
Yeah, I guess one of his EOs is taking medical debt off of credit reports, and
Right.
that's a pretty big deal. Like,
Yeah. Sure.
given how many people have medical debt, it's the number one cause of
Yes.
bankruptcy in this country, and like for it to not be reflected on credit reports anymore once medical debt goes into
It's a
collections and
step.
whatnot.
You got to cancel it. You got to cancel the debt is what
Hmm.
really
No,
matters.
of
And get
course. Yeah, I mean, like how unlike a neoliberal, like like a little tweak, and it's okay, it's good, it's fine, but you can go further with
you
like
can always go further
without a
with him.
doubt. Yeah.
Incrementalism. Incrementalism killed the cat.
Yeah. Um, I guess he also signed into as an executive order federal land protections for the Mojave. So
Oh, good.
that's pretty cool. Um, and a big one, aside from more money to Ukraine, which is a big deal. Um, he, I guess, used it under the jurisdiction of some act. I forget exactly what the act is called, but basically, um, he made it so that no new leases can be greenlit for offshore drilling for basically any um, areas off the coast of all U.S. territory, all the U.S. states. So like basically offshore drilling is protected. Um, not protected. Um, the shores of the United States are protected from drilling. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, way to do it at the end when it doesn't even matter, man. Like, I mean, the devastation that we're about to see with Trump 2.0.
Yeah,
I mean, the people that he's putting in power. The other one we should talk about next time is Bobby Kennedy Jr. I mean, my God, this guy, what he's going to do to Health and Human Services
yeah,
is really scary.
yeah,
Really scary. But maybe that's the kind of thing we need to wake up is when the bad federal government starts to mess with your food, then you really start to pay attention and
yeah.
actually realize that government's a pretty important part of society. In fact, it's arguably the most important part of society, guys. I know everybody hates the DMV, but my concluding thought on today's show is defend government conceptually, intellectually, and rhetorically because
Yeah,
it's really important. When you study history, you study the history of
yeah,
government.
yeah. Especially who you allow to be in power
Right.
within government. It means the world, honestly, and I just hope that our next pandemic isn't going to be within the next 4 years because having RFK Jr. at the helm just to oversee things, given that he's an anti-vaxxer, is not at all encouraging. Um, not to mention, I guess he's going to put less nicotine in cigarettes too, which I mean, for me, like there are a few things that he could do that I have no issue with, like taking out food dyes from certain things. I don't really mind that sort of thing, especially the ones that have been linked to cancer and certain diseases and shit. But yeah, it's going to be a shit show. It's going to be a shit show.
Yeah, it's going to be a disaster. No, it's going to be a
Yeah.
disaster. It's going to be the ultimate I told you so.
Hmm.
It's going to be the ultimate I told you so for all those people who didn't think Project 2025 was for real, for all the people that thought Trump 2.0 would somehow be bigger, better, and more loving and kind than the first round. I don't know what you were thinking. It's going to be a disaster, and we're not going to learn our lesson because we're going to go back to more neoliberalism. At least that's what I'm preparing myself for. That's
No,
what I mean. It's all
yeah,
expectation management because I've been disappointed so many times.
yeah.
You
That's
know.
that's the pendulum that we are finding ourselves swinging on. It's between neoliberalism and neoconservatism, and it's
Yep.
just it's gonna be that way until the fucking earth collapses in on itself. But speaking of nicotine, though, I I've had a problem with geek bars for like the past 6 months, and
Yeah, me too.
I haven't hit this thing in a week, and I'm actually kind of
Nice.
really happy with that. I think being sick actually kind of helps with that a little bit because it's
Sure.
like I don't want because my lungs already feel fucking shitty, so it's like
Right.
I don't want that like. It was really cool. I haven't had like cravings for it either.
Nice.
It,
Stay with it, dude. You don't need it. It's a waste of money too.
no, yeah, no, of course. Yeah,
Those things aren't cheap.
according to Megan, I guess less nicotine in cigarettes is a Biden thing. That's weird. So a little fact check in that regard. But yeah,
Yes,
no,
thank you, Megan.
fucking nicotine is the fucking devil.
All right. Well, I think that's a wrap. Are
Yeah,
you good?
yeah.
All right. Well,
I think we covered everything in my. Yeah, we covered everything.
and thank you all for tolerating my measly microphone. I am traveling right now. I will be back at home base Monday or Tuesday of next week, and we will get back to our regular schedule of twice a week. And I have got some essays coming out next week that will be relevant. We'll probably try to do a some sort of reaction to the inauguration,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah.
But I'm dry. We'll talk more about it, but it might be tough for me. We'll do something.
We'll see. Yeah.
Until then, we are reminding you that you don't get change in America by asking nicely.
Everybody have a good night. Thanks for watching.